everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of the startup series with the Guinness Enterprise Centre, Ireland's home for entrepreneurs. My name is Ronan Donnelly, and over the next few weeks, I'll be chatting to our community about everything from funding and scaling to challenges and opportunities and everything else in between. So, in the GEC, we're really lucky to have a number of programs which add value and drive results to our community, one of which is an award winning university program. I'm delighted to say that we're joined by Madison Roche, who is the manager of the GEC University program. Madison, how are you?
Hi, Ronan. Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
No, thanks, William, for coming on. Maddie, give us a quick background to yourself. I suppose the first thing that people notice when they chat to you is the accent and where you're from. So you might tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I'm not Irish yet, but I will be someday, hopefully. I'm originally from California, from the Bay Area, just north of San Francisco. And like every good American, have a bit of Irish heritage from way back. So grew up with a lot of that kind of culture and idea in the Bay Area. So when it came time to do study abroad from my college in Chicago, I decided I'd go to Cork, having never been to Ireland before. So that was a bit of a shock to the system, but absolutely loved it, fell in love with Ireland, and knew once I was done working for a few years after my undergrad, I did 2 and a bit years in advertising, that I'd like to get my postgrad in Ireland. So that's what I did. I came back about almost 3 years ago now to get my postgrad in international management from the NUIG. Finished that and decided I'd stick on and find work and then kind of move over to the big smoke. So I've officially lived in the 3 big cities of Ireland, and I've loved every minute of it.
Brilliant. So you've kind of gone from the Bay Area, arguably the startup capital of the world, into Chicago, home of the Cubs, into the real capital, some might say, in Ireland, of Cork, and then into Galway, probably the heritage capital of Ireland. What was the big difference between, say, your time in the Bay Area and Chicago, and then coming into Ireland? You know, what struck you first?
I think we all kind of have the idea of where you're from. You just kind of are used to it. So growing up, I went to high school in the city of San Francisco, and it's quite an old city where families, have long histories there as well. So I didn't really realize, I guess, that it was such a big, important hub of innovation and startups really until like the whole Facebook boom and everything like that. And just growing up there, we were kind of quite used to it, to be honest, seeing so many different companies grow overnight and these big unicorn companies. And that was really impressive to see and now look back on, being in startup sectors now. And then moving over to Chicago was an equally impressive city to witness, not just because the Cubs winning the World Series, of course, but also it's just a really hardworking city as well, and they do a lot of things differently than San Francisco ever would. So I learned really important things, not just for myself and working, but just the different parts of the states that I never really would have considered before. And I really loved working in advertising. Our company there was a really small company as well, so I've only ever really done smaller enterprises, but I found that I've really liked working in that kind of environment, and coming from San Francisco, where everybody has had internships at Google and Facebook and all of that, and moving away from that and into something smaller has definitely been a challenge, but something that I think I really enjoyed doing.
Yeah, sure. And like, I suppose then when you finish the MBA in NUIG, you come into the Guinness Enterprise Centre, and you come in at a really exciting time when the university program is starting to get up and running, and I suppose we start linking up some of the companies with some of the leading universities globally. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, and how your year looks when you're linking up some of our companies and global universities?
Yeah, definitely. Well, originally when I started, I actually applied for the regional partnership manager's role that Julianne now has. So that was a bit of a funny
That's
turn
for
of
another
events.
that's for another interview.
Yeah, oops. But during my first interview, partnerships in general at the GEC came up, and I think between myself and management knew, as we were talking, it sounded like a different program than the regionals one. And now looking back on it, thank God I didn't get regionals program. It's so impressive, and Julianne does such a good job with it, but it's so out of my remit. But universities, having been to a university already outside of the States, or outside of my state of California into Chicago, I quite know, obviously, the university system in the States quite well. Having done study abroad in Cork at UCC for a semester, and then getting the full postgrad in NUIG, I felt like I knew the environment of both the university systems quite well. So it kind of happened more organically and naturally. And the universities program had technically started before my time there. One of our other employees kind of had it on a side of their normal role. And so they had already this smaller network, but a network nonetheless of lecturers, mostly within Ireland, so Trinity and UCD and all of them, that were working on doing projects with live small to medium enterprises as opposed to the large case studies. And so when I got started, it was really just an organic kind of network that I hopped in on, and then used connections from different universities in the States. The beautiful thing about working with academics is that word of mouth is really important to them. So it kind of grew like wildfire relatively quickly, between projects, internships, and visits, which were our three main branches that the program kind of does. So on the university side, it was much easier, I think, than I had anticipated that it would be. Not that it was difficult getting companies involved, but trying to tell them to take time out of their busy schedules. And as you know, working with startups and entrepreneurs, it's never a 9-to-5 schedule. It's never just like a smooth business week. There's stuff that happens all the time. So trying to find that really sweet spot where it benefits not only students and universities, but entrepreneurs as well, and really creating a symbiotic relationship where there's knowledge transfer equally between the two is ultimately my goal for any of those projects. So I'm happy to say that we've had a lot of success, not in just students getting good marks on their projects, but ultimately companies that maybe don't have the time, the resources, or frankly aren't that interested in doing the harder research aspects of things that students are happy to pick up on and put on their CVs, and hopefully come back and start interning for those companies in the future, or doing even something like I've done, coming back to Ireland or going to Ireland as a student, as a foreign student, is always a nice kind of happy ending to those stories as well.
Yeah, I mean, you raised a really good point there, actually, in terms of time. And, sometimes companies, especially ones who are scaling or are really, really trying to drive on, they don't have the time to take on board a program like this, or they mightn't have the time to upskill. What kind of, because it's a beneficial program, and I say that because you're getting a fresh set of eyes on a business case or a problem that you might have that you don't have time to solve. What kind of cases have we experienced in the past whereby a community member in the GEC has really benefited from the university program?
Sure. We do a couple of different projects throughout the year, some that are just undergrad, not just undergrad, but they're undergrads that work on one specific prompt for a whole semester. And then we have up to MBA capstone projects that are obviously quite intensive and can last about a year. So I'd hope that each company that's involved gets something out of each project that they do. But one company in particular worked with a group of executive MBA students that came to us last spring, and they come for international consultancy weeks, as we like to call them, where you get a group of executive MBA students to work one-on-one with these companies that they've done research on before their arrival to Ireland and to the GEC. And then you work with those students and those companies for the full week, and at the end, the students kind of pitch back what they've found as business consultants to the companies. And this company that participated in was quite a seeded company. They were really young and had a great medical device. But the founders of the company, in a lot of stories with medical device companies, is that they knew all of the science, they knew all of the medical terms and all of those kind of really insane vocabulary that only med tech device people would ever know, but they had no idea how to turn that into a business. So they really wanted help with their pitching, their business model, everything like that. And so they worked with this group of students longer than the week, but they worked one-on-one with them for the week while they were there, and actually ended up hiring shortly after wasn't a CEO, but a business founder, based off of the findings of the students for their consultancy group, that, they had the answers there with them the whole time, but the students just kind of helped them look at it in a different way. And from there, they were able to hire somebody new within a week, I think, of the students finishing. And they've been, all three of them, working together really well ever since then. So that was a really good story to hear. And the students actually ended up winning an award for their work with that company as well. So it was a really good ending for all involved. But it's just stories like that constantly are coming back, and even smaller stories of, this is a really good opportunity for entrepreneurs to get direct pipeline access to certain countries or certain regions that they would never think of. So you've got companies now that can pinpoint on a map Columbus, Ohio, where they've worked with students from there that can get them, not necessarily get them clients like their salespeople, but they have a much better understanding of different parts of the world thanks to these projects.
And I suppose this is like you've mentioned there, like linking up with Columbus and Ohio, or companies who might be trying to enter new markets. It really kind of provides that international network, that will like give a good platform for companies to kind of scale outside of Ireland, or even potentially outside of the EU if needs be, or into a target market. Like you've given some really good examples there of how companies have worked with the university program, and like the program itself, the proof is in the pudding, so to speak, and that the university program has won a number of awards. You might mention a few of those awards they've won when they were presented.
Sure, yeah. So we have participated 3 years now, this is our third year, in UBI's global benchmark study. So this is a company that's whole focus is to do this benchmark study for startups and incubation spaces around the world. I don't have the exact specs, but I think they have, 200 odd enterprise centers from all over the world in their database, and something crazy like 15 to 20 countries represented. And so they give us a very lengthy application where we have to answer everything from number of clients, different services provided, all of that. And the company then has an algorithm where they kind of compare and contrast all the centers. So the first year we won I always mess this up because it's such a mouthful, but the top global incubation center in the world. Yeah, number one in the world, something like that. I think it was the private or the public business incubation sector. And what's really nice about UBI is that each year they really take on criticisms and different ideas and things like that, because incubation space is kind of a broad term. It can really be incubation spaces within universities, outside of universities, public, private, all of that. And so last year when we went back, we won 2 awards. We won top 5 private business incubators in the world, but number 1 in Europe. And those are associated with universities. So we were really honored to get those awards last year. The competition definitely gets more and more stiff with each passing year. So it was a really big honor to go to Doha, Qatar, to not only receive the award, but you're meeting all these other center managers and program managers that are running these really amazing programs and are so innovative, not just within their country, but within incubation spaces, full stop. So it was really interesting to go and meet everybody and kind of bounce different ideas off of each other.
Sure. And like you say there, Maddie, you mentioned like innovation. A part of UBI and a part of the awards have to do with innovation and thinking outside the box, so to speak. I mean, the last number of weeks throughout COVID-19 have probably impacted the program, and it maybe would have put a halt to other programs. But in this case, you've managed to work remotely with a number of universities. Do you want to maybe tell us how you've been able to manage that relationship remotely, as opposed to what would generally be like face-to-face or bringing in delegations to the GEC?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting time on both the startup side and the university side of things. Everybody is kind of waiting with bated breath, I think. But what better time to be innovative and change things around than right now? So we've done small things like, hosting delegations and hosting panel discussions online. It's particularly tough for the university sector at the moment where they have summer school students and trying to get students in for the next semester. So trying to offer something like that. And on the flip side of that, we're also moving all of the projects and everything that we can virtually as well. I think that's just good life practice anyways. Ideally, if you're going into business and international business as well, a lot of these meetings and big ideas and projects are going to be happening via Zoom and different programs like that. So I think it's a new focus that universities are really trying to hone in on now is how to teach not Zoom 101, but how do you work together with groups that you might not even met in person and how to create relationships like that. So we're moving all projects online and that seems to be working quite well. And it's working really well for the entrepreneurs now who, some might be finding that they actually have less time now than they ever did, just trying to do firefighting and working from home with family life and everything like that. So to them, I say it's the perfect time to offload some of that stress and, look forward to the future. We have lots of projects going on that are going to be focusing on a roadmap for businesses in the near future and post-COVID working and different things like that. So, I mean, that's invaluable information that I think if you can cater it to your companies, why not do it? And then other entrepreneurs that have more free time than they ever thought is a really good chance to kind of look back onto their company and their current business model now and say, what can I change? How can I better adapt myself to what's going on now, how it's going to impact our business in the future. So it's a really interesting time and it's quite popular, to be honest, with the students to be doing something so topical and to be able to not only do something really topical that's happening now, but happening on a live case study with companies that currently need more assistance or need more research done or anything like that. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and like this is probably a huge opportunity for companies to work with the universities and the programs, not just in the immediate, not in the short term, but over the medium to long term. This could transform, like the last few months have probably transformed the way we operate as a business. And I suppose, like you mentioned again, time, it can be very difficult to implement new procedures and new policies. Do you think that's something that universities will really hone in on, is helping companies not necessarily grow remote, but maybe like continue to keep that culture working virtually and, being able to assist with not necessarily with programs, maybe with projects which mightn't have been regarded as critical, but now are key to are key to a business, and really support those foundations going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're working on a project right now with the Technical University of Dublin, formerly DIT, on the GEC side of things, just on what will the future of co-working be and working remotely. How can we better position ourselves to enter that market and to get ready for either the influx or the lack of people that maybe don't want to be working in spaces like that. And that's another good point, I think, is that especially now with everybody trying to better position themselves after COVID, sometimes no is an answer as well. If people aren't looking to use incubation spaces after this, well, why aren't they looking to use spaces after this? How can we offer something different? How can we change people into thinking that, we can offer you a safe, clean space to work in that's not home? So I guess it's just a different time. Whereas, before projects were really software business based, which was always good. People always want to know newer marketing techniques and different things like that. But I don't know if this answers your question actually, but just focusing on the COVID side of things, it's a nice silver lining, I think, that doesn't make it so dark and damp, is that you can actually get some really interesting work done at this point in time.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. And that's something that we hear from our communities, that they are getting valuable insights about things that were maybe a nice to have a couple of months ago, and knowing whether they're actually critical at this point in time. Because I think everyone is checking their balance sheet
Yeah.
and checking what services they have, whether it's required and whether it's really an important part of the business. So Maddie, I mean, if companies are coming into the GEC or wish to contact you, how can they get in touch? What's the best way to keep in touch?
Pretty easy to get in contact with. It's either LinkedIn, I'm getting requests on there all the time,
Yeah,
or there's a tab on our GEC website all about the university's program that goes into a little bit more depth. But if people just email me, madison@gec.ie, I can send on examples of past projects, project applications, and just things that are coming through the pipeline now.
brilliant, brilliant, good stuff, good stuff. Well, look, Maddie, thanks a million for taking the time to chat to us today. Hopefully, we'll bring you back on once we are able to bring more people back into the centre and we go face to face.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks for having me, Ronan.
Enjoy, thanks, Maddie.